He began his career with solid acting roots on the New York stage.
I don't know, am I acting nervous? I can't quite tell.
He came into the minds of Americans with a quirky, unstable, and sometimes dark on-screen persona.
My nightmare, perhaps, but go ahead.
His performances have won him the adoration of critics and moviegoers alike.
And the winner is...
He has twice been honored with the Academy Award.
It's been a pretty good year.
He's that rare artist who's actually earned the right
I think so.
to be called one of the world's finest performers.
It sounds pretty extraordinary.
With a career built on solid ability and heavyweight acting credentials,
Sorry, I was having an aneurysm, but I'm back.
he's not just a megastar.
That ultimately is the big question.
Kevin Spacey is a mega talent.
I wish it could be that easy all the time.
Kevin Spacey was born Kevin Matthew Fowler on July 26, 1959. His mother Kathleen was a secretary, and his father Thomas a technical writer. Kevin was the youngest of 3 children and had a flair for the dramatic from the very beginning.
I was born in New Jersey, actually. I was born in South Orange, and then moved to California and was raised there for 18 years.
As a kid, Kevin Spacey was actually a bit of a troublemaker. He got sent off to military school by his parents after he accidentally set fire to his sister's treehouse. Kevin Spacey fell in love with acting when he was attending Chatsworth High School, and some of the other students in his drama class went on to be famous as well, including Val Kilmer and Mare Winningham. In fact, Kevin and Mare starred together in high school in The Sound of Music, and many years later, they were both nominated for Oscars in the exact same year. And Mare sent Kevin a note saying, "Captain Von Trapp, congratulations on your nomination, Maria." His earliest influences as an actor were actually the old black and white movies he would watch at home late at night as a kid. His favorites were people like Humphrey Bogart, Spencer Tracy, Jimmy Stewart, and Katharine Hepburn, who he actually ended up being pen pals with after he had made it big as an actor himself.
Just before I came to New York to go to school, where I for about a year and a half, I went out and did stand-up, and I did impressions.
He did Jimmy Stewart and Christopher Walken.
It was incredible fun, a very difficult life. I decided not one I wanted to pursue.
And he actually posed as Johnny Carson's son in order to get into the popular nightclub Studio 54.
Mr. Carson, yes.
We'll cut to a break. We'll be right back. See, nobody cares.
After 2 years at Juilliard, Kevin dropped out of the renowned school and ended up working as an office assistant for the Broadway producer Joseph Papp.
Well, one night, Papp went and saw Kevin in an off Broadway play, and the next day promptly fired him from his office. He said that Kevin needed to be out pursuing his acting and not get stuck behind a desk.
Although he spent many years consistently working on the New York stage, Kevin did manage to squeeze in a few small film roles along the way.
Kevin Spacey's first on-screen appearance was in the movie Heartburn, starring Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep. Pretty heavy hitters for your first time at that. He played a subway thief in a scene with Meryl Streep, and he was supposed to wink at her, but apparently he was so nervous from doing the scene that his face wouldn't stop twitching.
The stage continued to be the most significant part of Kevin's career, especially a role he landed in a 1991 production of Neil Simon's Lost in Yonkers.
It was Lost in Yonkers that got me my first real film role, because Pacino had come to see Lost in Yonkers and had really liked it and brought Jamie Foley, the director, the next week to see it again. And he pointed me out, and the next thing I knew, I was auditioning for Glengarry Glen Ross, and that was how I got that movie.
When I did Mr. Roberts with Henry Fonda, James Cagney, and Bill Powell, and I was a kid in his 20s, I thought, well, this is it. This is the greatest experience I will ever have. That same feeling I felt each morning working with Pacino and with Ed Harris and Kevin Spacey.
It's a joy to work on. It was like doing a play, this film, in many ways. We rehearsed it like a play, we shot it like a play. It plays like a movie, but it felt like a play.
I can't imagine any other actor in the world playing any one of those parts except the guys that I worked with.
I actually was a salesman for a while.
Really? What?
I sold shoes for a while. I was really bad at it.
This film, the ensemble acting was the best I've ever been involved with.
Kevin Spacey played the boss from hell in the dark comedy Swimming with Sharks. Well, there were a lot of pranks going on behind the scenes on that movie. One day, Kevin arranged to have his co-star, Frank Wally, told that the movie had been shut down, that it was all over. Well, Frank had packed his bags and gotten in a cab and was headed to the airport when he looked up and discovered that the cab driver was none other than...
That's another piece.
The movie The Usual Suspects was a big breakout film for Kevin Spacey.
Bryan Singer, first of all, for having fought for me to play that role. 36 days of shooting that was really sublime with a great group of actors and just a terrific role. Yeah, it was very hard for us to stop giggling when we were all together. You know, there was just something about our chemistry, those five guys, that we had to be reined in all the time.
He says he had a great time making the movie with the other actors, and he would have loved to have done a sequel to it if only half the characters weren't dead.
And action!
Kevin Spacey won his first Oscar for Best Supporting Actor playing the legendary and mysterious Kaiser Sose. He said at the time that as a kid he used to pretend winning an award, where he would come through the curtains in his kitchen and then accepting his box of Cheerios. On the actual night, he was pleasantly surprised because he didn't expect to win. In the movie Seven, Kevin Spacey plays the serial killer that Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt are trying to track down. Well, it was top secret that Kevin was even in the movie, and this was his idea. He wanted the audience to be surprised when he showed up near the end of the movie as the killer. And he said a great byproduct of this is that he didn't have to do press to promote the movie.
Marker. When we come back, Kevin gets to work with an old friend and makes a series of carefully crafted career moves.
You just have to use your imagination.
In 1996's A Time to Kill, Kevin continued his tradition of doing a good job portraying characters who were bad guys.
I felt that even though he's the nemesis in the story, and there's some sort of shady back door dealings going on his side of the case, he tries the case on its own merits. And I also like the fact that Jake and he have respect for each other. And I think that you sense that in the movie, that there's a sort of playful camaraderie between the two of them.
He also had the chance very briefly to do a scene with his old friend Samuel L. Jackson. It would be 2 years later on The Negotiator when they both leapt at the opportunity to work together again.
Sam and I have known each other for, probably more than 18 or 19 years, from, hitting the pavement in New York City when we were both starting out in the theater, and I used to see Sam in plays and used to be at auditions.
And Kevin and I had briefly touched on trying to work together when we did A Time to Kill.
We had a really great opportunity to sort of feel what it's like to work with another actor, and we kind of weren't satisfied yet, so we decided that we wanted to do something again together.
When the combination of us was presented to me, I just broke out into a big smile.
Sam got suggested. I said, yes. And then we saw each other at a party.
I ran into him at a party and said, so did you read The Negotiator?
And he said, you reading that thing, The Negotiator? I said, yeah. He said, you gonna do it?
And he said, yeah, you gonna do it? I said, if you do it, I'll do it.
He said, I'll do it if you do it. He said, well, I'll do it if you do it.
I said, all right, if you do it, I'll do it.
So here we are.
And we pretty much made a deal with each other, and yeah, that was the attraction.
See camera mark.
We're just so happy that it turned out well, and we've had a blast. All right, now you want to tell me what I'm doing up here, Danny?
Think about Kevin Spacey and think about Sam Jackson and just putting the two together, which obviously is something that's explosive, and we're watching it on the screen.
I'm just doing this to prove my innocence.
Well, I believe you, Danny. Anything I can do to try to help you get out of here, I will. Chris Sabian offered me an opportunity to be sort of an intellectual presence. Sam's the one doing all the dives and jumping off of railings, and explosions are happening, and I'm warm and cozy in a room.
When you're an actor of the caliber of Kevin Spacey, being associated with a certain specific type of character can be very frustrating.
He always plays, villainous, dark, brooding, manipulative, secretive, mysterious characters. I think I've gone about as far with the dark side as I can. I'm just trying to make a shift to broaden my own horizons so that I could attempt to bring an audience on a journey of my own that would lead to a place where I could do a movie like this, and it would be credible.
Kevin Spacey won his second Oscar for Best Actor this time for the movie American Beauty. He said that when he read the script one night, he was nearly knocked out of bed by how good it was, and he was determined to say yes before anyone else even had the chance to read it.
I actually read it with some degree of anticipation, because I knew Sam Mendes is the director's work from the theater, and I knew he'd turned down a bunch of movies. So I was curious as to what he'd held out for. I think everyone would recognize that routine sets in sometimes, and that you want nothing more than to sort of no longer remain standing in the place that you're standing, and you either, something's going to break or you're going to implode. And I think that Lester decides to test life, and he tests it almost on every single level. In the end of the film, what he's taught about life is that those things that we are seeking to find some degree of inner peace, which I think is what he achieves finally, are really not that far outside of ourselves. And you have to have a relationship to yourself before you can have a relationship to the world and to other people. We understood that there was a great deal of humor in the script that we wanted to have come out, because I think it's through comedy, it's through not taking it seriously that I think allows the drama to start to live. And I think it's sort of, it's a slow burn, this film, in the sense that it starts off very, very funny, and it's funny for a very long time until it's not anymore. And, you know, sort of, I guess it's a little like life.
Kevin Spacey is notoriously private about his personal life, and he prefers to keep things mysterious. About the only person he's ever been linked to officially is a script supervisor named Diane Dreyer, and she was actually his girlfriend at the time of American Beauty, and he took her to the Oscars the night that he won.
In 2001, Kevin took on a character that was a little less like real life and more like science fiction.
I play a man who is a patient at a psychiatric hospital in New York City who claims to be from another planet.
It was great working with Kevin. He was kept everybody on their toes and everybody guessing. Had a great sense of humor.
Well, I just loved the way he viewed the world, and I loved some of the philosophical notions of how he looked at how being should exist and be.
An incredible ability to really almost like a conjurer, just create the character.
This was a tough character to balance. To make it both real and also have this sort of scope of this kind of wonderful fantasy.
We work in a pretty similar way, I think. We're pretty open. You know, we love to exchange ideas.
Jeff and I, and you know, when we first started rehearsals, we had a lot of really incredible conversations, and it was because of the trust that I put in him and the trust that he put in me.
Not just who Kevin and Jeff were as actors, but who they are as people, made it very, very easy, that they were very kind of free to trust and share.
There was no ego, there was no barriers, there was nothing we couldn't say to each other.
And also very open to be directed, and they understood, you know, what that process was, which made it easy.
A lot of acting is just like when you were kids, you know, pretending, and a lot of that joy is kind of brought into the work, especially when you're working with a guy like Kevin, and it was a lot of fun.
I think he's just a fascinating character because he's a mystery, and he seems to approach every human he comes in contact with without judgment, just accepts them as they are, and sometimes that's all we need to do as people, is just approach each other as human beings. And there's a kind of innocence to Pro that people might be responding to.
In the shipping news, Kevin took still another performance departure to inhabit a role unlike anything we've seen him do before.
I had really in film not ever played a role that was quite like Coyle. You know, there isn't an ironic, glib, or cynical bone in his body.
For Kevin Spacey, for example, who's mostly been doing characters that rely more on dialogue or wit, or he's now doing this slow-witted man that demands a lot more of him conveying things non-verbally.
In many ways, the story of Coyle is on his face. A lot of times in playing a role, you get sort of big, meaty moments where a character gets to express themselves. What was so wonderful about this screenplay and about this challenge is that those things don't really exist.
Kevin is a real pleasure to be with. He has a wonderful sense of humor, and he doesn't take anything terribly seriously.
He keeps things very loose and very open for discovering.
Every day was hilarious. He's enormously good-humoured and incredibly generous and wickedly funny.
I think it was a new and interesting challenge for Kevin to be forced to not rely on words, but to rely on honest expression of emotion.
I really had to trust that Lasse, that the editor, that the writer, they were driving the narrative, and Coyle is just sort of being moved around, and hopefully what he's learning about himself, about his community, about his family, you are watching his growth
The movie The Shipping News was a serious drama for Spacey, but there was some fun behind the scenes, especially with his co-star Dame Judi Dench.
Well, he's a wonderful actor. He's also extremely difficult to work with.
Her husband had passed away not long before that, so Kevin took it upon himself to really make sure she had a great time.
Because he makes you laugh a great deal. Makes me laugh a great deal. That's no help.
And on their weekends off, he actually took her to New York to see theater, and he taught her to ride a motorized scooter in Central Park.
But I wouldn't have it any other way. He's wonderful in the part.
After this, Kevin revisits his on-screen dark side and makes a dramatic return to his first love.
I will continue to sort of shake it up.
In the life of David Gale, he takes another acting swing from a slow-witted character to an extremely smart one.
The film begins 4 days before his execution. Constance was murdered by what's known as the Securitate method. He's accused of the rape and murder of a colleague.
The important thing about Kevin is that, it's not necessary to say how brilliant he is as an actor. It's a joy for a director to work with. It's the very obvious he inhabits a role.
And action, Kevin.
I think audiences really kind of enjoy the cat and mouse quality of films that don't give it to them all in a kind of cookie cutter way. I'm sorrier than you can know.
Every movie you watch him become more and more interesting, and he has the opportunity with every movie to sort of span, to have a range. He's constantly surprising you.
Kevin, easy, greatest actor of his generation, without a doubt, I think.
If the film has any kind of message, it's decidedly unclear. And that's great because the audiences can then come up with their own feelings about it. But along the way, we hope it's a pretty entertaining ride.
Reach down into those beautiful minds of yours and tell me, what do you fantasize about?
In 2004, Kevin Spacey wrote, directed, produced, and starred in the film Beyond the Sea, which is a biopic of the singer Bobby Darin.
My intention and my hope is that we'll introduce Bobby Darin to a whole generation for whom he isn't known. And quite frankly, all those guys in the sort of Rat Pack revival in the last number of years, Bobby's been the forgotten one. And that's a real shame because of all of them, he was probably, next to Sammy Davis Jr., the greatest nightclub entertainer we ever had.
He also recorded all the songs and sang on the soundtrack.
Every time I was off doing a movie somewhere, I'd be in a hotel room with tracks and learning and going into studios recording and learning about myself recording and trying to find a way to have the attack be Bobby's, but not feel saddled by doing an imitation, because I felt the vocals had to be my own. It had to come from me in order for it to be alive. And I think that was hugely important because I felt if the music wasn't right, then it wouldn't matter how good the movie was.
And the only heart I own for you and you alone, that's all, that's all.
In a twist of irony, Kevin Spacey once balked at rumors that he might play Superman's comic book nemesis, Lex Luthor.
Don't believe everything you read. At no time have I been attached to the movie Superman. I kept reading that I was, but at no time was I ever attached to that film.
It would only be 8 years later that Bryan Singer, his friend and Usual Suspects director, would make him eat those words.
Before I read the script, Bryan talked to me about that it was going to be a film that, although it was going to have all those elements of the comic book and certainly the level of humor that I think certainly the Donner films did.
Kevin's such a great villain. I mean, he plays it so well. He's so multi-layered and funny. I think that's the key of having a good villain, is that Kevin is so funny.
That it was going to be darker, and that in particular Lex Luthor was going to be a character who wasn't quite the used car salesman, but more of somebody who's gone through so many changes and feels that he's been so betrayed that he's now out for revenge.
Kevin Spacey shaved his head to play Lex Luthor, and he loved having the look for the part, obviously, but he said that it got him some unwelcome attention. He said that everyone wants to touch his head all the time. And at a certain point, you're like, please, waiter, stop. Kevin Spacey played a supporting role in the movie 21, but it was landmark for another reason. because it was the first movie that he had put out with his production company, Trigger Street Films.
I met with Kevin at the Chateau Marmont and we took a meeting, and I said, well, are you going to be Mickey? Because from what I'm reading on the page, this seems almost tailor-made. I mean, I can't imagine anybody else doing this.
Robert is somebody that you just feel you can trust.
He said the story of these people that cheat at blackjack appealed to him because all of the action was going on in their minds.
Without the proof, it's like it never happened.
I've always really loved his work, and so I was just excited at the chance to come and play with him. There he is. He's got a lot more money.
I think he just turns out to be pretty good, and he's seriously scary.
We first met on Beyond the Sea, which is a film that he directed, and it was a project very dear to his heart.
Kate was always sort of in the back of my head.
From that, kind of formed a really beautiful friendship, and that's so nice to have in this industry, and sort of feel like you've got each other's back.
It's always amazing to work with an actor that you've seen in so many great films and you respect him so much. Just to be in a scene, you know, locking into each other, is kind of the reason why you do what you do.
There's an elegance and a tone to Mickey that you only get with an actor like Kevin Spacey.
We all do what we got to do. You know, you go the place you've got to go in order to make a character for yourself rich and give it a history and give it a diversity and give it some weight.
In 2008, Kevin Spacey turned in another great performance in the acclaimed HBO movie Recount, which was about the Florida recount during the controversial 2000 presidential election.
There were two entirely different schools of thought about how this recount should be approached. George Bush and his team looked at it as a street fight. George Bush behaved like the candidate. Al Gore behaved like the vice president. This happened, and this is the way it happened. And I think that maybe that's a really valuable thing for the American public and beyond the United States for people to grapple with and look at, because what does it say about our electoral process?
And it was a perfect fit for Spacey because he's always been a bit of a political junkie. He's good friends with President Bill Clinton, and even as a kid, he campaigned and stuffed envelopes for presidential candidate Jimmy Carter.
Have we got it right? Could it happen again? The answer to the question is no and yes.
In 2009, Kevin joined an all-star cast in a wacky psychological war comedy called The Men Who Stare at Goats.
As crazy as it is, what these people were doing, there's a part of you that really wants to believe it's possible.
I was fascinated with the subject, with the idea of psychic warfare.
He's not a nice guy, the character that I play. He's jealous, petty, mean-spirited.
I like to work with people that I admire, and this one is just chock-filled with friends and artists who are just, you know, the top guys.
And when the camera's turning, there's real sense of play, and it's great fun. It's really great fun.
Kevin Spacey, a good friend of mine, and it's always great to be able to play with your buddies.
He's really funny. I mean, even when he's not on camera, but when on camera and in this role, I just think he knocks it out of the park.
He's wonderful in the part.
Even with a red-hot film career, Kevin Spacey has always maintained his love for the stage.
There is something to the immediacy of the experience and to what you learn about a play and about yourself. I mean, the process for an actor in doing a play is just much more satisfying.
In fact, in 2003, he actually relocated to London so he could serve as the artistic director for the Old Vic Theatre.
I love being able to focus, as I have these last 5 years, on theater. And trying to make an argument for theater in as many places as I can. I'm trying to balance, you know, my full-time job in London running the Old Vic, which I love and adore, with, you know, keeping one foot firmly in the film world.
Kevin Spacey has always tried to maintain an air of mystery around his personal life, and there have been stories that he might actually be gay. In 1997, Esquire magazine put those rumors front and center with a cover story they called Kevin Spacey Has a Secret. And Kevin Spacey was not too happy with the story.
I'm fine.
He's never been married or had any children, but he is extremely close to his two dogs, a black Jack Russell Terrier named Minnie and a Labrador named Legacy.
And as one of Hollywood's best-known performers, he's learned to live in a world where everyone knows his face. And in fact, Kevin Spacey has a wonderful attitude about it.
People are really nice, people are really courteous. Basically, people talk about the performances and what, you know, how much it affected them. I go out, you know, go to the grocery store and people stop me and give me the thumbs up. You know, it's literally like you suddenly live in a small town, and there's nothing wrong with that.
So he's at peace with the fans, but after all these years in front of the camera, is he still having fun?
This is what movie making should be, you know. It should be groups of people getting together who are up for the same thing and up for for the same reasons, and get along, and you know, the egos are left at the door, and you get on with it and have a good time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.